Bristol Community College, Mathematics with Dan Avedikian, Math 060, Topics in Developmental Mathematics, Section 2.5, Problem 24. This is Section 2.5, Problem 24. It says 4 sisters find 41 and 5/16 ounces of solid gold buried in their backyard. If they divide the gold equally, how much does each sister get? So what we have is the amount of gold, 41 and 5/16 ounces, divided by 4, because you're going to equally split it among the 4 sisters that found it. So in order to do a problem like this, what I need to do is write the 41 and 5/16 as an improper fraction, just a fraction with only a numerator and a denominator. Same with the 4. The 4 will be easier. I'll just write it as 4/1. So, to convert the 41 and 5/16 to an improper fraction, first I take the denominator, multiply it times the number in front. So I will multiply 16 times 41. Well, that's not something I think most people do in their head. So off to one side, I'll put the larger number as the top value, 41 times 16. You can multiply numbers in either order. So 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. That takes care of the 6. Now before I multiply the 1, put in a 0 to hold your place. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 4 is 4. I'll add those numbers together. 6 plus 0 is 6. 4 plus 1 is 5. 2 plus 4 is 6. So now I'm not done yet. That was just the multiplication. So now I take the result of the multiplication and I add that to the numerator. So I'm going to add the result of 656 plus 5 more, and that will be 661. So 41 and 5/16 can be written as 661 over 16. And that will be divided by, instead of 4, let's write 4/1. Again, any whole number can be converted to a fraction by just putting a 1 under it. Now I can multiply. What I'm going to do is leave the first fraction unchanged. 661 over 16 will stay 661 over 16. The divide, though, will change to a multiply. And now the 4/1, I can invert that or just flip it to 1/4. And now you can check to see if you can pre-reduce anything, but you can't. Really, the 4 and the 661, 4 is even, 661 is not. Notice 16 and 4 reduce nicely, but you can't reduce them because they're both denominators. You'd have to have 1 in the numerator, 1 in the denominator to reduce. So even though they divide nicely, you can't reduce them. So coming across the top, numerator times numerator, 661 times 1, that's 661. The times 1 makes it easy enough. And then the denominators, 16 times 4 is 64. So each sister would get 661 over 64 ounces of gold. Now, it's probably interesting to know how many ounces that is as a mixed number, because that's not really something completely sensible. So off to the side, let me divide the denominator of 64 into the numerator of 661. So 64 does not go into 6. 64 will go into 66, though. It'll go in once. 1 times 64 is 64. And now subtract 66 minus 64. Well, that's 2. Bring down the next digit, and that's 1. So put the 1 next to the 2 that you got. 64 will not divide into 21. 21 is just not big enough, so we put in a 0. 0 times 64 is 0, and then 21 minus 0 is 21. So the remainder becomes the numerator, and the denominator stays the denominator. So we could say 661 over 64 ounces of gold, or 10 and 21/64 ounces of gold. Those numbers are equivalent amounts of gold, But the 10 and 21 over 64, I think, makes more sense. And again, you won't, since this is an application problem where units of measure are given, you should give units of measure in your answer. You could either put ounces or even ounces of gold if you like.